Hi, this is Louise of Out of Print Audiobooks. In my most recent requests list video, I mentioned that I also have a personal wish list of audiobooks that I'm on the lookout for, and asked if you wanted to hear it. Since you said yes, here it is. This is being recorded in a different space than my usual recording setup, so it might sound a bit different to usual. Some of these audiobooks are ones I remember from my childhood, others are from authors or narrators that I really admire. Of course, all of them have been discontinued from sale and aren't available anymore. Let me know if you remember any of these. Want any added onto the requests list? Only 3 per person, please. Or if you have any of these audiobooks yourself that you'd like to share with me. If this is the case, you can email me at arrow.youtube@hotmail.co.uk. There are over 300 titles on this list, so get comfy, we're going to be here a while. I'm going in alphabetical order by the author's first name. Adele Jerras, The Fantora Family Files, read by Jonathan Cecil. Alan Davidson, Catfoot and the Case of the Missing Bits of London, read by Andy Crane. Alan Durant, Creep Hall, read by Anne Beach. Creep Hall Forever, read by Anne Beach. Game Boy, read by Christopher Oxford. Game Boy Galactic, read by David Thorpe. Game Boy Reloaded, read by Sue Mason. Spider McDrew and Happy Birthday Spider McDrew, read by Stephen Perring. Statman, read by David Thorpe. The Phantom Footballer, read by Richard Mitchley. Up for the Cup and Swat the Ball, read by Clifford Norgate. Alan Garner, A Bag of Moonshine, read by the author. Alan Temperley, Ghosts, Witches and Folk Tales, read by Moira Miller and Billy Riddich. Harry and the Wrinklies, read by Stephen McGann. Alex Gutteridge, Princess Posy Knight in Training, read by Sophie Aldred. Alex Shearer, I Was a Schoolboy Bridegroom, read by Glenn Macready. The Cloud Hunters, read by Christopher Naylor. The Great Blue Yonder, read by Richard Mitchley. The Invisible Man's Socks, read by Alistair Petrie. The Ministry of Ghosts, read by Christopher Webster. Alexander McCall Smith, The 5 Lost Aunts of Harriet Bean, read by Nerys Hughes. Alison Croghan, Black Spring, read by Kim Hicks. Alison Rattle, The Quietness, read by Annie Hemingway. Alan Alberg, Cops and Robbers, read by Bernard Cribbins. Friendly Matches, read by Sophie Aldred. Master Bun the Baker's Boy, read by Jan Francis. Miss Jump the Jockey, read by Jan Francis and John Baddeley. The Better Brown Stories, read by Richard Mitchley. The Giant Baby, read by Andy Crane. The Runaway Diner, read by Jeff Woodman. The Vanishment of Thomas Tull, narrator unknown. Andrew Matthews, Monster Hullabaloo and Monster Nursery School, read by Brian Glover. Andrew Norris, Friends for Life, read by Alison Larkin. I Don't Believe It, Archie, read by John Sackville. The Unluckiest Boy in the World, read by John Macready. Anne Coburn, Showtime, read by Jill Schilling. Worm Songs, read by Hannah Gordon. Anna Dale, Magical Mischief, read by Phillida Nash. Whispering to Witches, read by Jan Francis. Anna Adney, I Have a Plan, read by Helen Lederer. Annie Dalton, Tilly Beanie and the Best Friend Machine, read by Eve Karp. Ways to Trap a Yeti, read by Guy Bass. Zack Black and the Magic Dads, read by David Thorpe. Anthony McGowan, Einstein's Underpants and How They Saved the World, read by Stephen Perring. Antonia Barber, Tales from the Ballet, read by Hannah Gordon. The Mousehole Cat, read by Sian Phillips. Bally Ray, Dream On, read by Neil Granger. Shivers, read by Christopher Webster. Them and Us, read by Daniel Coonan. Barbara Willard, Spell Me a Witch, read by Rula Lenska. Burley Doherty, A Calf Called Valentine, read by the author. Children of Winter, read by Sylvester Latrousel. Holly Starcross, read by Alison Reed. How Green You Are, Making of Fingers, read by Nerys Hughes. Jeannie of White Peak Farm, read by Rachel Drazek. The Famous Adventures of Jack, read by Prunella Scales. The Wind Spinner, read by the author. Treason, read by Tim Bruce. Betsy Byers, A Blossom Promise, read by Blaine Fairman. The Pinballs, read by Rita Gardner. Carol Drinkwater, Molly, read by the author. Caroline Pitcher, Cloud Cat, read by Andrew Sachs. Caroline Plaisted, Tilly Tiptoes and the Gala Show, Tilly Tiptoes and the Grand Surprise, Tilly Tiptoes Takes a Curtain Call, all read by Susie Riddle. Catherine MacPhail, Granny Nothing, and Granny Nothing and the Shrunken Head, both read by Sophie Aldred. Catherine Sefton, Bertie Boggin and the Ghost Again, read by Judy Bennett. Catherine Storr, Last Stories of Polly and the Wolf, read by Judy Bennett. Marianne Dreams, read by Susanna Harker. Polly and the Wolf Again, read by Josie Lawrence. Tales of Polly and the Hungry Wolf, read by Josie Lawrence. Kathy Cassidy, Angel Cake, read by India Fisher. Driftwood, read by Jane McFarlane. Ginger Snaps, read by India Fisher. Charlie James, Fish, read by Glenn Macready. Cherith Baldry, The Buried Cross, read by Stephen Pacey. The Drowned Sword, read by Glenn Macready. Chris Higgins, Pride and Penalties, and Would You Rather, both read by India Fisher. Cora Harrison, Debutantes, read by Gilly Bond. Cornelia Funke, Emma and the Blue Genie, read by the author. Fearless, read by Elliot Hill. The Pirate Pig and Ruffleclaw, read by the author. Dean Wilkinson, The Legend of Arthur King, and Arthur King and the Curious Case of the Time Train, both read by Stephen Pacey. Deirdre Madden, Thanks for Telling Me, Emily, read by Caroline Lennon. Diana Wynne Jones, Enna Hittams, read by Rita Sharman. Fire and Hemlock, read by Gemma Dawson. Wild Robert, read by Jane Asher. Eileen Dunlop, Green Willow's Secret, read by Bridget Forsyth. Elizabeth Laird, Dead Man's River and Other Stories, narrator unknown. Hiding Out, read by Clifford Norgate. Karen and the Artist, narrator unknown. The Day Veronica Was Nosy, read by Johnny Morris. The Earthquake, narrator unknown. The Storm, narrator unknown. Wild Things, read by Dominic Taylor. Elsie McCutcheon, Smokescreen, read by Jan Francis. Forrest Wilson, Supergran, and Supergran Rules OK, both read by Gudrun Jean Kemp, Nothing Scares Me, read by Rachel Bavage. Geraldine McCaughrean, A Pack of Lies, read by Andrew Sachs. A Pilgrim's Progress, read by Steve Tompkinson. The Crystal Pool, read by Christine Rodsker. Dog Days, read by Glenn Macready. Gold Dust, read by Laura Lefkoe. Greek Gods and Goddesses, read by Andrew Sachs. Not the End of the World, read by Kate Sachs and Glenn Macready. Pull Out All the Stops, read by Laurel Lefkoe. Smile, read by Richard Morant. Stop the Train, read by Laurel Lefkoe. Tamburlaine's Elephants, read by Andrew Sachs. The Bronze Cauldron, read by Christine Rodsker. The Death-Defying Pepper Roo, read by Anton Lesser. The Kite Rider, read by Anton Lesser. The Oxford Treasury of Fairy Stories, read by Richard Morant and Eve Karpf. The White Darkness, read by Ruth Zillers and Richard Morant. Gillian Cross, A Map of Nowhere, read by Frances Tomelty. The Dark Behind the Curtain, read by Christian Rodsker. The Demon Headmaster, dramatised. The Great Elephant Chase, read by Jenny Agutter. The Minty Glow Kid, read by Eve Karpf. The Monster Snowman, read by Thomas Eyre. Tightrope, read by Sophie Aldred. Hazel Townsend, The Great Ice Cream Crime and Siege of Cobb Street School, read by Sandy Toksvig. The Speckled Panic and The Choking Peril, read by Bernard Cribbins. Helen Cresswell, Almost Goodbye Guzzler, read by Judy Brown. Bagthorpes Unlimited, read by Clive Mantle. Bagthorpes vs. the World, read by Clive Mantle. Posy Bates Again, read by Judy Bennett. Posy Bates and the Bag Lady, read by Judy Bennett. The Bagthorpe Triangle, read by Christian Rodsker. The Night Watchman, read by Stephen Thorne. The Pie Makers, read by Patricia Routledge. The Sea Piper and the Little Seahorse, read by Julia Mackenzie. The Watchers, read by Stephen Thorne. James Reeves, Castle of the Golden Sun, read by Georgia Melville. Jan Mark, Thunder and Lightnings, read by Andy Crane. Jane Resch Thomas, The Princess in the Pigpen, read by Rulo Lensker. Jill Murphy, The Large Family Collection, read by Maureen Lipman. Jill Patton Walsh, A Piece of Justice, read by Bridget Forsyth. Joan Lingard, After You've Gone, read by Hilary Neville. Natasha's Will, read by Diana Bishop. Tell the Moon to Come Out, read by Andrew Sachs. The 12th Day of July, read by Gerald Murphy. Tilly and the Wild Goats, read by Jane McFarlane. Tom and the Treehouse, read by Philip Jackson. Judy Corbelis, Put a Sock in It, Percy, read by Richard Mitchley. The Wrestling Princess and Other Stories, read by Celia Imrie. The Wrestling Princess and Oscar and the Ice Pick, read by Nerys Hughes and Linda Bellingham. Your Dad's a Monkey, read by Nigel Planer. Jules Older, Hank Prank and Hot Henrietta, read by Peter Whitman. Kay Umansky, Beyond the Beanstalk, read by David Holt. Clover Twig and the Incredible Flying Cottage, read by Jan Francis. Meet the Weirds, read by Zoe Ann Phillips. The Dreadful Dragon, narrator unknown. The Queen's Tale, read by Caroline Guthrie. The Wickedest Witch in the World, read by Penelope Rawlins. Tin Can Hero and King Keith and the Jolly Lodger, read by Prunella Scales. Wildly Weird, read by Evelyn McLean. Wish for a Witch, read by Joan Walker. Witch in Winter, read by Joan Walker. Witches Unwelcome, read by Joan Walker. Kenneth Lillington, Josephine, read by James Saxon. Kevin Crossley Holland, Selected British Folk Tales, read by Martin Jarvis. Waterslane Angels, read by Patience Tomlinson. Leon Garfield, Shakespeare Stories, Julius Caesar, read by Simon Russell Beale. Louise Cooper, Creatures, Once I Caught a Fish Alive, read by Rick Jerome. Lynn Reed Banks, I, Houdini, read by the author. MMK, The Ordinary Princess, read by Jan Francis. Mallory Blackman, A Dangerous Game, read by Richard Fox. Heartbreak Girl, narrator unknown. Hostage, read by Zoe Ann Phillips. My Friend's a Griscrock, read by Ben Allen. Margaret Mayo, A Pea, a Princess and a Pig, read by Georgie Adams. Magical Tales, read by Hannah Gordon. Mary Hoffman, Troubadour, read by Gilly Bond. Michael Broad, Ghost Diamond, read by Lucy Scott. The Robot Dinner Lady and The Werewolf Teacher, read by Paul Checker. Michael Morpurgo, The High King of Britain, read by the author. Nina Borden, The Real Plato Jones, read by Eve Karp. Pamela Oldfield, All About Melanie Brown, More About the Gumby Gang, The Mill Pond Ghost and Other Stories, The Willoughbys and the Bank Robbers, all read by Jean Wagoner. Paul Jennings, Sucked In and Tongue-Tied, both read by the author. Paul Stewart, Blobheads, read by Nigel Lambert. Pull Through, London Snow, read by Stephen Thorne. Paula Danzinger, Everyone Else's Parents Said Yes. P.S. Longer Letter Later. Remember Me to Harold Square. Thames Doesn't Rhyme with James. All read by the author. Penelope Lively, Astercote, read by Frances Tomelty. Fanny and the Monsters, read by Jan Francis. The Drift Away, read by Hannah Gordon. Penny Dolan, The Ghost of Mabel Abel and the Spectre of Harry Hector. The Phantom of Billy Bantam and The Ghoul of Bodger O'Toole, both read by Richard Mitchley. The Third Elephant, read by Christine Stevens. Philip Reeve, The Night of the Living Veg, read by Andy Crane. Philip Ridley, Mercedes Ice, read by Josie Lawrence. Mighty Fizz Chiller and Vinegar Street, narrators unknown. Philippa Gregory, Florizella and the Wolves, read by Sophie Aldred. Princess Rules, read by Daisy Bevan. Phyllis Arkle, The Railway Cat and The Railway Cat's Secret, read by Susanna Harker. Rachel Anderson, Little Angel Comes to Stay, narrator unknown. When Mum Went to Work, read by Bridget Forsyth. Robert Leeson, Hob Lane School Stories, read by Judy Bennett. The Demon Bike Rider and Third Class Genie, read by Kenneth Shanley. Robert Swindells, The Orchard Book of Vikings, read by Christian Rodsker. Roderick Gordon, Closer, read by Paul Checker. Roger McGough, The Magic Fountain, read by the author. Roz Asquith, Cosmic Custard, Letters from an Alien Schoolboy, and Galactic Poodle, Letters from an Alien Schoolboy, read by Christopher Naylor. Trixie and the Dream Pony of Doom, read by Kate Sachs. Rose Impey, A Birthday for Bluebell, the Oldest Cow in the World, read by the author. A Fortune for Yo-Yo, the Richest Dog in the World, narrator unknown. Hot Dog Harris, the Smallest Dog in the World, narrator unknown. Introducing Scarlet Glee, read by Lisa Coleman. Monster and Frog-Mind Baby, narrator unknown. My Scary Fairy Godmother, read by Gillian Walton. Phew, Sydney, the Sweetest Smelling Skunk in the World, read by Sue Rayner. Sleepy Sammy, the Sleepiest Sloth in the World, read by Sue Rayner. The Shooting Star, read by Gillian Walton. Tiny Tim, the Longest Jumping Frog, narrator unknown. Too Many Babies, the Largest Litter in the World, narrator unknown. Rosemary Manning, Green Smoke, read by Sian Phillips. Rosemary Sutcliffe, Outcast, The Lantern Bearers, The Shining Company, The Silver Branch, all read by Joanna Ward. The Wanderings of Odysseus, read by Robert Glinster. Rosie Rushton, Echoes of Love, read by Kate Byers. Looking for Billy, read by Judy Flynn. Whatever Love Is, read by Kate Byers. Rumour Godden, The Didacoy, read by Linda Bellingham. Rupert Kingfisher, Madame Pomplemousse and Her Incredible Edibles, read by Jenny Agutter. Russell Hoban, The Mouse and His Child, read by Richard Midgley. Russell Stannard, The Time and Space of Uncle Albert, read by Philip Franks. Ruth Symes, Bewitched, Cat Magic, Coven Road, Too Many Spells, Witch Camo, and Witchling, all read by Darren Edwards. Sally Prue, Ice Maiden, read by Thomas Judd. James and the Alien Experiment, read by Glenn Macready. Song Hunter, read by Helen Ayres. The Devil's Toenail, read by Robert Glinster. Wheels of War, read by Huell John. Sam Llewellyn, Little Darlings, read by Simon Shepherd. The Rope School, read by Imogen Stubbs. Sam McBratney, Jimmy Zest, read by Sean Barrett. Jimmy Zest is Best, read by Stephen Perring. Zesty, read by Richard Midgley. Shirley Hughes, Alfie Gives a Hand. Alfie Stories, read by Thora Hurd. An Evening at Alfie's, read by Thora Hurd. Big Alfie Out of Doors Storybook, read by Thora Hurd. Charlie Moon and the Big Bonanza Bust-Up, read by Gordon Fairclough. Dogger and Other Stories, read by Kevin Whatley. Here Comes Charlie Moon, read by Gordon Fairclough. Off to School, read by Nigel Anthony. Rhymes for Annie Rose, read by Jenny Quayle. Stories by Firelight, read by Anna Massey. Tales of Trotter Street, read by Ian Home. Simon Cheshire, Jeremy Brown's Secret Agent, read by Richard Midgley. They Melted His Brain, read by Stephen Perring. Totally Unsuitable for Children, read by Bill Wallace. Simon Mason, The Quigleys, read by Sophie Thompson. Siobhan Dowd, Bog Child, read by Sile Birmingham. Stephen Elbers, Temmie and the Flying Bears, read by Michael Maloney. Steve Marlowe and Steve Skidmore, A Touch of Wind, read by Nigel Lambert. Good Night, read by Graham Steed. Killer Clone, read by Peter Wickham. Nightmare, read by Graham Seed. Mind the Door and Must Fly, read by Nigel Lambert. Return of the Lost World, read by Nigel Lambert. Trology, read by Graham Seed. Vernon Bright and Frankenstein's Hamster, Vernon Bright and the End of the World. Vernon Bright and the Faster Than Light Show, Vernon Bright and the Magnetic Banana, all read by Nigel Lambert. Wizard, narrator unknown. Steve Turner, The Day I Fell Down the Toilet, read by the author. Susan Gates, Snail Boy and the Toilet Bots, read by Nigel Lambert. Susan Price, Ollie Spellmaker and the Sulky Smudge Shop, read by Glenn Macready. Sylvia Green, The Best Dog in the World, read by Richard Midgley. Tamsin Murray, The Rabbit Racer and Showbiz Sensation, both read by Kate Harbour. Terence Blacker, Parent Swap, read by Tim Lawrence. Racing Manhattan, read by Stina Nilsson. The Angel Factory, read by Dominic Taylor. The Transfer, read by Mark McGann. You Have Ghost Mail, read by Cornelius Garrett. Terry Deary, The Hat Trick, read by Richard Burnip. The King in Blood Red and Gold, read by Toby Longworth. The Lady of Fire and Tears, read by Toby Longworth. The Last Viking, read by Hugh Perminter. The Vampire of Croglin, read by Wayne Foster. The Witch of Nightmare Avenue, read by Jill Schilling. War Games, read by Joe Cohen. Toby Forward, Wyvern Winter, read by Francis Tomelty. Tony Bradman, Assassin, read by Charlotte Stevens. Billy the Dinosaur Stories, read by Josie Lawrence. Football Crazy, read by Jack Hawkins. Merlin and the Ring of Power, read by Thomas Eyre. Mystery on Tape, read by Kerry Watley. Sam and Ruby's Olympic Adventure, read by Daniel Philpott. Science Fiction Stories and Science Fiction on Tape, read by Stephen McGann. The Dirty Dozen, read by Diana Bishop. Young Merlin, read by Wayne Foster. Tony Payne, Oh No Annie, read by Helen Lederer. Ursula Murray Williams, Grandma and the Gowleys, read by Gwen Watford. The Further Adventures of Goblino and the Little Wooden Horse, read by June Whitfield. Tiger Nanny, read by Penelope Wilton. Vanessa Curtis, Lila May's Manic Day, read by Lisa Coleman. William Mayne, Earthfasts, read by Clifford Norgate. Kelpie, read by Siobhan Redmond. Willis Hall, Antelope Company Ashore, Antelope Company at Large, The Return of the Antelope, all read by Nigel Lambert. The Vampire Hunt, read by Nigel Lambert. The Vampire Vanishes, read by Brian Glover. The Vampire's Christmas, read by Dermot Crowley. Vampire's Holiday, read by Brian Glover. W.J. Corbett, The End of the Tale and Other Stories, read by Christian Rodsker. The Grandson Boy, read by Julia Mackenzie. And those are the titles on my personal wish list that I've always got an eye out for. What did you think? Do you remember these titles too? Are any of them your favourites? Let me know in the comments below, and do please get in contact if you've got any of these audiobooks and you'd like to share them with me. You can email me at arrow.youtube@hotmail.co.uk. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you continue to enjoy the audiobooks that I share on this channel. Long live nostalgia!